But now we're in Swiss round 6, you know. 5-0 feels great, but it's not enough points yet to get into day 2, so they're going to keep having to duel on.
Yeah, like you said, Steven, both these decks have been sort of the hallmark decks that every duelist that's been playing for the last 5 months has been trying their best to play around or play with. Hopefully we can see just how strong these archetypes are as they face head-to-head. I will mention, I don't think we've seen it quite yet, but Javier is running an interesting version of Malice that I can't wait to shed more light on as we see the fun cards within it, because Malice is not just a Cyber Summon Link Monsters deck. You can do all kinds of really fun stuff with it. Sort of
Cyber's pile, as they call it. No, this is certainly a creative brand too, but again, you know, a lot of folks have been mentioning that Malice hasn't won a YCS yet.
Yeah.
Maybe this could be the event, right? We were also talking about how Blue Eyes hasn't had to stay in the sun yet either, but there's been some crazy stuff going on. Of course, we're just coming off of the YCS Buenos Aires over in Argentina that got a Mermail win on the board, so anything can happen.
Yeah, I think a lot of the players in the community sort of signified that the Malice deck is unquestionably as powerful, if not more powerful, than something like RYZEAL, but RYZEALs are so consistent and so resilient. Like, there's almost nothing players can do to fully stop them if they draw the right kinds of extenders, whereas Malice does have a pretty big silver bullet in the format by the name of Artifact Lancia, and even cards like Chaos Hunter, which can be just really hard for duelists to play into, as there's really no way to really, you know, dodge that. But maybe there is, and Javier might show us.
Ooh, I guess we shall see. Now, we did see a little bit of Artifact Lancia gameplay earlier in the tournament, right? And Crossout Designator can deal with it, but you still have to draw the Crossout Designator, an unsearchable quick play spell card.
Or you could just play an engine that doesn't lose to Lancia.
That's true,
That's
too.
always an idea, too. I mean, I'm not gonna, I don't want to spoil what Javier's doing, but, you know, that could be a thing.
That is going to be exciting. Duelists seem like they're pretty comfortable on stage, sharing some smiles. Both of these competitors well known in their own right, but again, only one of these duelists can leave with a win, or maybe the unfortunate draw there, but just good to see these duelists in their element. Again, both regional champions, or recent regional champions, sporting that beautiful orange deck box. But now we're going to game 1 of round 6 of YCS Houston.
Will the RYZEALs dominate and detonate, or will the Malice infect these robots with some malware and take it home? We have a 4 coming from Javier, and Brian is going to be rolling on 11. That's a little bit more than 4, I think.
Yeah, just a little bit. So I assume he's going to go first and set up a powerful RYZEAL board. Super
excited to see what he's also supplementing his RYZEAL deck with. As you can see, the thing I was mentioning, yes, Javier is playing BYSTIAL Malice with some FIENDSMITH cards thrown in. If you want to play cards that are good against Lancia, cards like FIENDSMITH are super awesome.
Well, the BYSTIALs will certainly help too, right? You know, there are plenty of light pyro monsters in this deck, so see what he starts off with. Looks like it's going to be Bonfire.
And again, I mentioned earlier last time RYZEAL was on screen, sometimes this shows a little bit of weakness from their hand, but it can also just represent a lot of strength too if they already have a bunch of cards in hand. But here we see Javier looking at it as a sign of weakness and going to choose to Ash Blossom and Joy Spring that Bonfire and stop it from being used.
Doesn't seem like Brian's going to do anything about that. I did catch what appeared to be a 7-tack, yeah, but now we're going into the Surfacing Big Jaws. It's water time.
Yes, that's a really awesome card from Rage of the Abyss that, if you've activated a spell card this turn, can special summon itself and search for a shark monster. Let's see what shark card Brian's going to go after here.
So that's interesting, too. Now you have to think about if they open up with Bonfire, maybe they're just trying to get that spell card out of the way, and it doesn't even matter if the effect gets negated. So be careful with your Ash Blossoms, friends. It's dangerous out there.
And there we see Drake Shark, basically a pop lore for the shark archetype. Whenever it's added to your hand, no matter where it's added from, graveyard, deck, doesn't matter, you can automatically summon to the field. And there we go into RYZEAL Duo Drive using those 2 level 4 monsters and doing what this card does, activating its effect. Maybe Javier's now regretting using his Ash Blossom, but he has Ghost over it, Snow Rabbit. That will also deal with the Duo Drive because it needs to remove on resolution.
Oh, goodness. A lot of resources lost there. There was really a lot of different things you could do. You could have gone for a Bahamut Shark there and maybe gotten totally awesome, but it wouldn't have felt like a full RYZEAL combo. And so now he's locked with just a few cards. Looks like maybe a Metal Tronus. Oh, he's passing turn.
So Javier was correct. That Bonfire, like you said, even though it did enable the Surfacing Big Jaws, maybe was a sign of weakness in the hand. And now Javier gets to begin his turn. And when you give Malice a free turn going first, it's really nice.
Now let's see. Malice fans are about to get what they wished for, a cool Malice combo, but we'll see which monster comes out first.
I did see the Dormouse in hand, so we definitely have some way to play here, but does Brian have any non-engine in his hand that could interact with that?
Well, it looks like he's holding on to a Moltrami Fuwalos. He doesn't want to telegraph that just yet, hoping to discard it after the monsters hit the field.
And I was talking about Bonfire being a sign of weakness from RYZEAL players. Setting a card face down before you commit into any other plays is a super huge sign of strength for a Malice player,
Yeah,
because if they have any Malice normal summon, that face down represents an MTP, GWCO6, or maybe even a TB11 that can just make your combos super resilient to any non-engine.
Speaking of combos, here is the combo starter. It is Malice Dormouse. So I think we're going to make our first move on the field.
Yeah, this will let you banish any Malice monster from your deck, and then if it's a Malice name that can summon itself from the banish, that can be really powerful.
Are you guys keeping track of that?
Right, so
Javier asking to make sure he can keep track of his own life points. Always good to make sure. There's going to be all kinds of things flying here. Huge shout out to our production staff. They're going to be doing a lot of changes in life points, I think, this round.
Oh, I can hear that beep, 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 beep from here.
Yeah. I know the vibes.
Yep, so there we see the White Rabbit being banished. We're going to immediately use its effect, paying 300 life points to try and summon it from the banish pile.
And really, there's not a lot that can punish Malice. And I know that sounds very silly when there's Artifact Lancia in the format, but other than Artifact Lancia, you know, maybe you're looking for a Molcharmy Meows and hasn't seen as much popularity in the main deck, even though it can get a lot of resources there. But speaking of resources, here comes Fualos for some extra draws.
Yeah, like you said, there's no real punish, like in the sense of stopping Malice from doing stuff, but there are cards like Molcharmy Fualos, Molcharmy Meows that can incentivize them to not do as much as they could. But with this setup, Javier might be going for something like, with this... Oh, I guess he's deciding if he wants to chain to that. No, he's going to use the White Rabbit's effect to set a trap card from his deck. It's going to be interesting to see what he chooses to go for here. He could very well combo off and just try to go for a game and just like not care about the Fualos at all. Because besides drawing Nibiru, I can't really think of any cards that Brian would have to stop him from going for a game this turn. At this point, given that he has so much protection via his trap cards, that if he just gets to a Cryptor, he can very easily get enough damage to win the game.
Veer is certainly not uncommon in RYZEAL, but not as popular because you don't typically want to tribute some of your most powerful monsters out there. So it's kind of a 50-50 mix-up. Javier's got to consider whether or not to go in here, and doesn't seem like he's going to do it. He just attacks with the Malice Dormouse and Malice White Rabbit.
I really respect this from Javier. Both of his Malice monsters are being boosted by his Dormouse, giving them plus 600 attacks. We're going to be doing, I believe, a total of 3,300 damage here, because it's 15 plus 18.
And I think we're just making sure the calculations are right there. A lot of math.
And then what Javier's might look to do here is just like go for a much more minuscule combo, maybe just end like on a IP or an SP and just go, here's one draw. You didn't have much in your hand this turn. I doubt you'll have any more. Go ahead.
Information-wise, you certainly know that Brian is on the ropes because he did nothing after losing that first Xyz monster. And so, yes, an IP Masquerena is going to give one more draw. But I guess from Javier's perspective, he just doesn't see it as that much of a threat. Just one extra card should be okay.
Yeah, if Javier is playing the Bestial Malice version that I'm aware of that plays the Fiends with the cards, he plays it more like a control deck rather than like a combo go-for-game deck.
Ah, I see, because you could use one of your Bestials to banish one of your Malice monsters, and then use IP Masquerena to do a Link summon during your opponent's turn. Really great way to basically wait out the Molcharmy Fualos.
I don't want to like do too much predicting here and then have Javier not do what I'm saying, but something you could do with IP Masquerena is summon Heart's Cryptor during your opponent's turn and get the non-target banish that way.
Oh, yeah.
And we know he has MTPO7 set, and thus he gets the 2 non-target banishes while only giving away 1 draw to the opponent under Fua. That's really awesome.
Well, speaking of awesome, looks like we're going to get RYZEAL here, and we're going to send Myriologic Aggregator to the graveyard. Going to go ahead and negate the IP Masquerena before it can really do anything meaningful.
So what we could do here is we could chain to that, summoning from the yard, and then have IPB Chainlink 1. So that way, oh, I guess, yeah. So we would do IP, and then we would chain to that the effect to summon the monster from grave.
But I don't think you could because there were no monsters on the field at the time. So it looks like we're just going to let it get negated for now and search out with RYZEAL.
You're completely right. And there we see the power of RYZEAL in the RYZEAL deck, just being the ultimate breaker of boards.
And getting a quick peek there. Definitely seeing some 7th Tachyons in Brian's deck as he shuffles through. It's a really cool card. We haven't gotten to see it resolved that much. But in this deck particularly, getting to be able to grab those water cards too could be very, very helpful. But it looks like he's just going to go for a little bit further in. Thinking about maybe an Xyz summon as he cycles through the graveyard. Maybe attaching a material.
Yeah, I think he's just trying to figure out what those sets might be and how he can play through them. Like, he knows he has one of the Malice, I believe it's GWCO6 that Javier set last turn.
Yeah, that's a known. So time for our first Xyz summon here. Maybe he goes for the duo drive and tries again. If he's running 2, that is.
If it is the pure version of RYZEAL, I'd assume that they would be playing 2.
Could also just try to go for the detonator to push, and that's what he's doing, likely to grab the Myriologic Aggregator out of the graveyard.
Having that potential to negate another card seems really worth it.
Definitely helps. The timing of it could be very tricky but it's still a great way to be able to get stuff. We haven't seen a lot of Eclipse Twin pushes so far. I guess the Bahamut Shark has kind of taken that slot up for that early Xyz summon.
Yep, so there we see the Ice RYZEAL coming down, going to be summoning another one from the deck. We could probably get our access to another sword, maybe? Just to have one, or just getting another X? May as well get those names in rotation.
Anything on the resolution?
It's nice to have the rank 4 toolbox kind of back in action. So many different rank 4 monsters from throughout Yu-Gi-Oh's history. And see what we get next. I would imagine now sky's kind of the limit, but we are going for another duo drive.
Yep.
Duo to...
Thinking here if he wants to attach on summon, he is going to choose to do that.
Any response here? Javier considering his cards. Decides not to use either of them.
Yep, he's going to go ahead and let that resolve and then attach. And then are we going to declare the duo drive here to try to get access to 2 more RYZEAL cards?
Imagine you have to push.
Yeah, he's thinking on resolution of the effect to attach before Brian has an opportunity to use the effect of duo drive. Because we know that that set card is MTP07 and he currently does not have access to a Malice Link monster, we'll be able to get one because IP has been turned off this turn. I'm not sure how much... All right, so he's going to choose to GWCO6. Unfortunately, something he could, in theory, do is like bring back the White Rabbit, get TB11, but he might not play that in his deck, and it probably won't be that worth it for him this turn anyway to banish his own cards.
Banishing your own card is kind of the name of the game with Malice, but he is just going to slap down the Nibiru, the Primal Being, instead.
And target.
So he's going to chain target the other set card. Chain the MTP07, because it's been set already, you can just add a Malice name to hand.
Really great sequencing here, because if the chain resolves as is, Javier gets to take advantage of all his cards without adding to the attack of the token from Nibiru, the Primal Being.
Brian, I think, is debating using Crossout Designator on this Nibiru.
Wow.
That would be super huge.
Nibiru, the Primal Being.
Yeah, and he calls Nibiru the Primal Being, and so late stage, feeling out all the cards his opponent had, and now he's not even going to lose any of his monsters while basically forcing his opponent to use everything, sizing Brian up for maybe not winning in this turn, but knowing exactly what's going on from here on out.
Yep, so there we go. Chainlink 5 going to be banishing that Nibiru, thus turning its effect off, and then he just concedes.
Yeah.
Javier says it's over, because he knows that Brian's going to get access to a node plus cross, and that can get more than enough damage to go for game this turn, and Javier can't stop that.
So yeah, Brian managing to just clinch that out with a great cross-out designator. I still love that card so much. It's got a really interesting dynamic to it. Certainly has an impact on deck construction because sometimes you have to run some very offbeat cards, but the same way that you use Metal Tronos to out a RYZEAL detonator, Brian has used it to out his Nibiru the Primal Being, so good work.
Yeah, there was definitely maybe an argument to Javier on his turn 2, trying to go for some kind of amount of damage to go for game that turn. He definitely had access to probably, you know, using the MTP that he said to go search for Chessy Cat, the name that he hasn't had yet, being able to go into a Link 3 from there, get access to his trap card GWCO6 again, and then just get enough damage with something like Heart Scripter plus Decode Talker enabling. But he chose to go for the more conservative line and maybe got punished because Brian drew into enough engine to try to break Javier's board, and the power of extra RYZEAL turning out that IP Masquerade and pretty much turning all of the bonuses that Javier gets out of his Malice trap cards off.
XYZL certainly is a great starter, but it also can really be a great finisher, right? The Myriologic Aggregator having that threat all the time is so good. But looks like smiles here as we go into Game 2 of our Round 6 of YCS Houston. So let's find out if Javier took the chance to go first and what his opening hand is.
All right, I definitely see a Dormouse at the very least, so we're going to see some fun Malice action. But there we see the draw phase.
Wow.
Meowls coming from Brian, an amazing inclusion from Supreme Darkness. That's another card that I guess we should have mentioned that also targets specifically the Malice deck, being able to draw cards every time they summon from graveyard and banish it. But there we see the Ash countering that Meowls, thus negating its effects.
Certainly a little fist pump if you're a Malice fan there, right? Because, again, Meowls is a powerful card and is going to get many, many draws. However, it's get no draws if there is an Ash Blossom Majora's Spring at the ready. So we're going to go and activate Terraforming here and grab Malice and Underground.
This version, specifically that Javier is playing to, loves these cards like Malice Underground, Gold Sarcophagus, basically any of the classic Malice extenders, because they essentially are the ultimate cap-off or the ultimate beginning of your Bestial / Fiendsmith combos. There we see the Underground coming down here, choosing not to have the Dormouse come out, trying to conserve that normal summon or project a lot of strength by going for something like Chessie Cat here, because that's just one of the most powerful things you can do as a Malice player is get Chessie, banish the Dormouse that you have in hand, draw 2 cards, still use the Dormouse effect in the same turn. Oh, it's so strong.
It definitely asks your opponent a question. Yeah, there's the Chessie Cat. Like, hey, you gonna let this go through? You really gonna let me take these cards? You really gonna let me banish another Malice? And Brian has to make that decision, although I'm not seeing a lot of interactions in his hand right now.
Yeah, but it's kind of a lose-lose situation if you stop that Chessie Cat, because you'd only make this play if you have another name in hand, and I can just normal summon the name that I have in hand and still combo off anyway.
I love that we're getting into this guessing game format where you really just don't know what your opponent might have, and it makes the Yu-Gi-Oh! Trading Card game that much more fun. But yeah, no negation here. We're going to banish the Malice White Rabbit, draw 2.
Then we're going to pay 300 more life points, go down to 7,400, and bring out the White Rabbit again. We at home know that he has Dormouse, but Brian does not. So this normal summon Dormouse is going to go pretty hard, I think, for our boy Javier.
I will be watching Brian's expression closely when the Dormouse gets dropped down, because if you really pay attention to these long YCS streams, take a look at the player cam every now and again. You'll see people like, oh, that is a card that does that, or oh, man, and the roller coaster of emotions that this is such a treat, too.
Ooh, is that Branded Regained in Javier's hand? That's pretty cool.
Yeah, but I mean, think about it. It works for your own Malice to recycle some resources and draw cards if you happen to have already used those banish effects. And you can use it against your opponent's Malice cards, too, to draw cards and prevent them from special summoning, as long as the order comes out right.
So there we have the normal summon of Dormouse. We're going to go ahead and automatically link 1, it looks like here. Probably going to go for that classic honorary Malice monster, Link Decoder.
The best Malice monster.
Yeah, this is like the ultimate enabler for a lot of your sort of protection plays, being able to chain block. And there we see Branded Regained. And oh my gosh, if he banishes the Link Decoder after summoning it back, he can put it back into his deck using the Branded Regain and get a free draw. That's really cool.
And what a consistent play, because you're always going to see Link Decoder. So anytime you draw Branded Regain, you know that this is in the cards for you. So really good deck construction, Javier, and now he's executing.
Yep, and there we see Mouse Q Whitebinder going to be using that effect as Chain Link 1, targeting some cards, and then of course, oh no, is he not using the effect? No, he is. He's targeting his Dormouse, and then Chain Link 2 is Decoder to summon. Beautiful. And the only Malice effect he hasn't used yet this turn is Dormouse. That's going to summon back out to the field now because it was banished, going down to 7,100 life points.
So it'll be interesting to see what direction he goes here. Plenty of materials on the field. Could be going for something like an Abal Ku, Nightmare Griffin lock, depending on how he wants to slow his opponent down. Maybe just plays it safe and just gets a good Malice sort of field set up. But Javier just taking a look at the graveyard there before he goes on.
Yeah, this is definitely the kind of board texture where if you and I tried to guess what he was going to do, we would probably be wrong 99% of the time because the options are limitless. Here we're going to see him go for the GWCO6, banishing the Whitebinder to get another body back, and then the Whitebinder's effect will activate. He can pay 900 more life points, draw a card, and summon it back. And specifically, he hasn't used the effect of Whitebinder to set from deck or grave yet, so he can just get that GWCO6 back for his follow-up on the next turn. Really powerful.
Follow-up certainly important there.
I think, honestly, we might see him try to go for his Fiendsmith engine here because he's only locked into Link summoning. Therefore, he can use 2 of his monsters and go for Moon of the Close Heaven if he has it in his extra deck.
But we got the Infinite Permanents coming down there to keep that trap in the graveyard. So 1 trap for another. But you're right that right now we could just be Moon of the Closed Heaven and proceed into Fiendsmith Town from there.
100%.
I'll go Dormouse way.
So here we're going to activate Dormouse's effect. Fun fact, it hasn't used its effect to banish from deck. Even if he banishes a Malice monster, they won't be able to summon itself, but it will be in the banish zone, and that could be important for any Heart Cryptor plays he might have later in the turns.
That's probably why he set up another Dormouse just to be able to get access to it later.
And he already has more than enough bodies to keep playing. Losing out on the 1 is no big deal.
Well, Brian at least got the first game, but I'll tell you, Javier is just piling on the Malice field from there, and now we're going to get to see that interested Branded Regained interaction here. See the Link summon first, though? It's Moon of the Closed Heaven.
There is that Moon of the Closed Heaven. That's going to be an amazing way for him to sort of cap off this turn. He's probably going to be able to go for something like, you know, I mean, we'll see, but like I wouldn't be surprised if this ends with a Bawaku like you mentioned.
It just feels like it's going the right direction for that. Plenty of materials on the field, including Fiends. But speaking of Fiends, let's go ahead and send off 1 Light Fiend to make Fiendsmith Requiem.
And this is where the real synergies of this deck comes in. You know, the fact that you did all your Malice stuff and now you can do all the Fiendsmith stuff is just so amazing. You either get to use Lacrima, put Engraver in the graveyard, get more follow-up, get extra bodies. You get automatic Fiend monsters to go into Abawaku, which before was like a more tricky thing for this deck to kind of accomplish. Now it's super easy to do. I also want to point out, too, that Javier has drawn 4 cards already this turn from the Chessie Cat, the Regained, and his White Binder, and he has all this advantage still that he has yet to use.
Shows you how powerful this deck can be. I know that some of the matches that we've had on stream haven't necessarily shown the full potential of Malice, and that's not the duel's fault, right? Sometimes duels just don't go your way. But this is a masterclass in some of the interesting things you could do with this deck, especially if you combine these 3 engines.
And this is after being Meowled, stopped, and impermed.
Well, he's just that good.
So there we see the Link 3 here. This is probably going to go for Cryptor, if I had to imagine. Yep, there is the queen of all Malice monsters.
Yeah.
Going to be shuffling back that Moon of the Closed Heaven to get back out the Fiendsmith Engraver, and we can use this plus Cryptor to go into a bow, and then we can use a Bow's effect to bring back the Cryptor that we just used to summon it.
Which is insane. But we are able to do that. So Brian just verifying the contents of the graveyard there, maybe trying to think of what it is that he can do. With 25 minutes left on the clock, there's no reason to surrender just yet. Plenty of time to play more games.
So here we see the potential Link 2, the potential Link 4 coming from Javier. Again, if this isn't a bow, I'd be surprised if it was anything else.
Well, let's find out if there's a surprise in store.
Ooh, he's going to go for the
SP.
SP Little Knight. So he hasn't used the effect of Hard Scriptor to banish itself and summon back. He's going to pay 900. It'll come back and double its attack points. Honestly, this might actually be better than just a bow, because now he has the potential SP banish plus the non-target banish of the Hard Scriptor. I actually really like this. Oh, and we have Lubellion to go into our Bestial cards. Oh, yes.
That's crazy.
100%.
This Lubellion still doing a lot of work.
So what this is going to let him do is, A, get Magnemite, which is an amazing way to sort of cap off his turn here and get so much more advantage, because he can put Magnemite in the graveyard with Branded Regain, summon it back on his opponent's turn, get even more dragons. But he'll also be able to trigger his Malice White Binder during his opponent's turn, and then get all the awesome summons of things like White Rabbit, MTP07, 2 non-target banishes, basically the main ideal of the Malice archetype.
So he does end right there, exactly as you said, just relying on the Heart Scriptor, the SP Little Knight.
Yes.
So Brian's got his work cut out for him. You certainly could play a lot of cards in RYZEAL, but it's going to be difficult to break through some of the weird interactions here. We are going to go ahead and see the XYZEAL, though, and it's going to send Myriologic Aggregator. There's not really a good option here if you're trying to get Beastals out of your graveyard, and there's already plenty of lights and darks, so you might as well go for it.
Ooh, and here we see Brian using the effective Aggregator to target Cryptor. You're more than allowed to do that, but fun fact, guys, if this card is pointing to a monster, its effects cannot be negated.
That is correct. So it's... You can use the effect, but nothing happens. Think spell cards versus Black Flame Dragon, or excuse me, Horus the Black Flame Dragon.
100%, yes. You're more than welcome to try to negate Heart Cryptor's effect, but it will not work.
Yeah, the correct response is, But now we are going to go ahead and see the Sword RYZEAL adding an Ice RYZEAL to the hand. We haven't seen the normal summon yet. I'm not sure if Brian wants to make an Xyz monster here to sort of push the conversation forward before bringing out the Ice RYZEAL. It does seem like a good idea. You got to get at least some of this off the field.
Here we see Lacrima's effect going back into the deck and bringing out that Fiendsmith Requiem on resolution, or in an open game state. We're now going to use Requiem, summon back out the Lacrima, and then we're going to dump a card from our deck to the graveyard. Probably going to be that Paradise, so that way if he does go for an Xyz summon, he can just automatically send it to the graveyard.
Great way to get that out for sure, basically jumping back and forth again.
Yeah, I was mentioning all the fun, like, Magnemite stuff that Javier could have done in his first turn, but I'm a greedy goblin. Javier is much more resigned to just be like, I have more than enough here. No need to overextend. I respect that.
Yeah, playing very consistently, very cautiously. Speaking of consistent plays, let's see RYZEAL Detonator, likely to attach a Myriologic Aggregator here. Does kind of help the situation, but at the same time, SP Little Knight could try to bounce, and then you would detach to destroy. Javier decides not to do anything about that, so we do see the Myriologic Aggregator hit Detonator.
I think Javier's just trying to be like, I have so many effects that can interrupt this Detonator that I want to wait until I can chain it to the point where he won't be able to destroy any more of my cards.
Same card effects for real emergencies, right?
Yeah, exactly. Like, until you're actually threatening me, there's no point in getting rid of stuff.
So commits to the normal summon here, the Ice RYZEAL, no response, so we're going to go and special summon another body here. I think Node RYZEAL is the only thing we haven't seen, but we're going to go out and grab an X RYZEAL.
Like I said, I think Javier's fine to let him get all the way to Duo Drive, because he has stuff like Paradise, he has stuff like SP, he has stuff like Cryptor that can all stop Duo Drive from going off. But what's Brian thinking? Like, what's Brian's line here? Probably something like Exciton Knight maybe could be useful, but I'm not sure. What do we have? We have 4, 5, 6, 7, 8.
They're not getting anything, right?
It's double attack.
It's permanent 5K? Okay.
Yes, they were just clarifying how strong the Cryptor is. It's always going to be 5k after it summons from the Banish.
So wild to have a permanent attack boost there, at least a permanent attack doubling.
Oh, it's
Yeah. So when it, I guess they're just double checking. To my knowledge, it is a permanent buff because like it summons back with that number, and that becomes like a permanent stat buff. It's kind of like Blackwing Gale the Whirlwind. You know, like once you have it, it's always had. Even if it's something like Acts of Darkness that you get rid of, it's still going to be whatever the have number was.
Yu-Gi-Oh! Math can do some strange things sometimes. Speaking of math, looks like he's trying to solve the equation here of how he gets in.
Yeah, we're going to go battle phase. I think Javier's fine with this. He'll take 1,400 to still have a Cryptor in play. No big deal.
You're running up to attack this.
Oh, so yeah, there's just a clarification here. Because Malice and Underground is in play, the only target Brian has for attacks is Malice Link Monsters. And that is a very big Malice Link Monster.
Its effect was not negated. It couldn't be.
So Brian is in his battle phase and has no good attacks.
Not a fun position to be in if you are trying to edge out a win here. Again, Brian having the lead, having that first game, may not be able to clinch this one out, but still has a game 3 to go to with 20 minutes about left on the clock.
Oh, are they still in main phase actually? Did I hear Brian say still in main? Oh, they might let him take it back. Okay.
Interesting. So taking a quick look at the graveyard here.
That is a very full graveyard, as the kids say. and a known Magnemite in hand. Oof.
It's a rough position to be in.
Did Ryan just concede? Oh my goodness.
It sounds like it.
I wasn't winning anyway, I'm not gonna lie.
Strategically, you know, just conserving your time for the last game. This one tend to just kind of play through whatever it is they see. And speaking of playing, it's time for game 3.
Yep, here we're going to assume that Brian is going first. Both players have their opening hand of 5 cards. Best of luck to both of you. Let's see it go. Brian is choosing to go first. And his opening hand consists of a lot of really cool cards. I definitely saw Simon Tachyon in there.
Okay.
And I'm also seeing, it's like a couple of points of interaction. Definitely said Ash Blossom and Joyous Spring, but now we're going to start off with an interaction to really stop RYZEAL or slow it down.
But there we see Brian's Ash Blossom.
Mm-hmm.
Game 2, we saw Molcharmy versus an Ash Blossom. Game 3, we're seeing Ash Blossom versus a Molcharmy as well.
Purlia is just such an unfortunate card to play against with RYZEAL, but if you have Ash Blossom, you don't have to.
Ooh, so here we see the reveal of Ragnazero C. I believe it's what, 104, no, 103 Magnazero. Going to be searching for a water level 4. I believe it's going to be that surfacing Big Jaws.
Absolutely, and not a like completely useless card either. It's not just a water target there. You also can destroy those cards that have different attack, and we just saw one with the Heart Scriptor. So cutting the deck here, grabbing that surfacing Big Jaws. Now you've already activated the spell, so you can go ahead and plop that one out.
Yeah, not only can 7 Tachyon search the Big Jaws, but can also enable the Big Jaws to special summon itself because it is a spell card. This is very similar to Game 1 here. We're going to be grabbing that Drake Shark that we saw in Game 1, going to special summon it back out using its Poplar-like effect. And here we're going to go for the Duo Drive, or we're going to finally go into our Water rank 4s like you've been talking about.
It would be interesting to see a Bahamut Shark because, again, just being able to put up a little more resistance, right? Because what RYZEAL does so well, destroying cards, doesn't necessarily stop every deck. You know, you do have to actually stop them instead of just stunt them, right? And now we're seeing our first Xyz summon here, and technically the 5th summon of the turn, and Abir the Primal Being would really hurt. But we do have Bahamut Shark.
But I will say, if Javier does not Nibiru here, he has no good chance to, because once that Toad comes down, Nib basically doesn't do anything.
So there's the Primal Being.
Oh,
and the Cross-Out
Designator.
Designator. Oh, nice.
Brian's like, you never had a shot, Javier. My board was being made the whole time.
And definitely knows at least one of those cards is not helping his opponent during next turn.
Yep, and now we're going to get totally awesome out of the deck, most likely. Going to be summoning to the board here, and now we have a really powerful Omni Negate that could represent basically whatever you need to stop to keep playing.
Some great Frog friends, but backed up by a Sword RYZEAL, so the hits keep on coming here. We're probably going to see 4 Xyz monsters on the field at the end of this turn.
Which, the more I think about it, is insane. Being able to summon 4 really powerful different Xyz monsters while ending on something like RYZEAL Cross plus who knows how much follow-up is really nice to see. Here we're going to see the power of the pure RYZEAL deck at its finest.
Definitely love these sort of boss monster decks. The last one I can think of that did something as crazy as this was Monodium when it brought out Synchro after Synchro after Synchro. This feels almost like the modern-day equivalent of it for Xyz.
Oh, and there's the Starleech Photon Blast Dragon, the card you wanted to see, Bahamut Shark, and the card I wanted to see, Photon Blast Dragon.
Everybody wins if you're a RYZEAL fan, but not to be outcooked. Javier is still going to have to jump in this duel.
Ooh, there we see the Ash Blossom attempt here, but we could toad that to stop. If we get stopped here, we don't get access to do it to detonator, so it's really important that we do.
Going to tribute it. Does he choose to set? I don't think he would choose to set.
Wouldn't recommend that. Ooh, and here we see a really heads-up play from Brian here, detaching 2 from the Starleech Photon Blast Dragon because Duo Drive can detach from anywhere, and that actually preserves Duo Drive's ability to increase the attack points of all Xyz monsters, thus making sure the Starleech Photon Blast Dragon is still 2,000 attack, so it has that protection.
Excellent play from both duelists. This has been a real masterclass of what you can do with these 2 decks. I know some people are like, oh, you know, I want to see some of the crazy stuff. This is pretty crazy for these 2 decks.
Also, Toad being able to add back that Surfacing Big Jaws to your hand because it was sent to the graveyard is so awesome. It basically is a protection of all your cards and follow-up in the exact same card.
Definitely a great and powerful card there. We've also got RYZEAL Cross at the ready, so we might be recycling to get even more resources here. Brian does not want to go away from this duel without a win, and who can blame him, right? You do need 19 points to get to day 2, so every duel counts.
I think here's just debating if he crosses first or if he goes for Node RYZEAL first. Getting that draw seems really useful, but you want to make sure you maximize how many names you have. Javier could have Bestials, and so if you don't preserve enough non-light names, it could be pretty rough.
Definitely have to get in the habit of sometimes only sending your Fire RYZEALs to the graveyard so that when you do go for the RYZEAL Cross, you're not getting snatched by a Bestial.
So here we see the Node coming down. I think he's just debating what he's going to send away to get the summon off of Node. Oh, or are we overlaying into Eclipse Twins here?
I think so.
I really like this because what this will let him do is he can use Node to send his own Eclipse Twins, bring back something like the Duo Drive while still going for RYZEAL Detonator. And having a twin in rotation.
When we talked about not being able to see twins on the field, this is a definitely inspiring application of twins here. It is in defense mode, so maybe he's just going to leave it on the field.
Literally every monster you and I wanted to see, we're now seeing.
yeah, it's just a grab bag. I guess we'll just commentate into the future. But speaking of which, we're going to go and send with Node RYZEAL. Goodbye Eclipse Twins, and Eclipse Twins will go ahead and activate its effect shortly.
And he is choosing to summon that Sword RYZEAL, thus playing around any potential Bestials. But, oh, we have the Ghost Ogre and Snow Rabbit on the Node RYZEAL. That will not stop its effect from summoning, but that will get rid of the only other level 4 Brian has. He'll still be able to Eclipse Trend, but I don't know how he gets the Detonator.
That is pretty rough, because, again, we got to see all these different Xyz monsters, and they're all gone at this point.
Oh, are they asking how Eclipse Twins work? Maybe they're just making sure that everything was properly summoned? To my knowledge, everything was.
Everything was properly summoned, that is correct. Including the Eclipse Twins, which is actually kind of a rare thing for Eclipse Twins.
That is true. So we are going to...
I will activate the twins.
Mm-hmm.
So we've got the twins and the sword.
And Toad? Yes.
And...
No, not Toad.
Could do Toad.
Yeah, because the Duo Drive is summoned, you can summon the Duo Drive back while attaching the Toad, and that can give you some more value on your next turn by giving back your Surfacing Big Jaws.
But I think this is still the resolving of the effect of Eclipse Twins because it doesn't care about the levels of that.
Yes.
But the RYZEAL we're going to be attaching has to be attaching a RYZEAL monster.
Yeah, exactly.
Since
I'm
it's Duo
sorry.
Drive.
Yeah, exactly. Only Eclipse Twins can attack Toad. Yeah.
Because
But interesting, he wanted to go for the RYZEAL there, so... Bit of cross, I guess you're just hoping to find something.
And...
But very importantly, like, if Brian was not able to establish Detonator, if Javier has a Malice name, he could very easily go for game this turn.
Certainly could. Again, this has been a wild turn, but to what avail?
All the non-engine that Javier had, it felt like it was going to be perfectly stopped by Brian, having the Cross-Deck Designator, having the Starleech Photon Blast Dragon, but Ghost Ogre, Snow Rabbit, Ash Blossom, and Perulia was enough to stop Brian's whole turn. Well, I wouldn't say stop it, but definitely keep him off Detonator, the most powerful part of his turn.
Javier has definitely done a great job of protecting that, but remember, there's only 2 cards left in his hand, and we know one of them is Nibiru the Primal Being, so unless he just raw draws that Dormouse, the Dormouse may not be enough either, because remember, RYZEAL Cross is on the field, so there's at least 1 point of interaction right there.
100%.
Stand by.
Yep.
So we're into Javier's standby phase and main phase. Let's see what he summons.
I think he drew a Mulcharmy for turn, and I know he has Engraver in hand. So just Engraver is not enough because of the cross, but if you're Brian, do you take the risk of crossing the first monster you see?
Let's find out. What does Brian do?
This is
He
going to be a
furrows
make or
his
break.
brow, by the way. Talking about the player camera. He's really thinking about that.
But Brian gets so much advantage by using this cross here because he can send the Toad, Toad get back Drake Shark summon.
What an awesome combo.
This is a tough spot for Brian because any Malice card is more than enough.
50-50.
Except Chessy Cat, I should say. Not Chessy Cat, but yeah.
Oh, he's going for it.
I'll cross.
He does choose to
he's
cross negate on
just-
resolution.
He's getting rid of the X RYZEAL. I like that because if the RYZEAL Duo Drive hits the graveyard, well, then the Toad will hit the graveyard anyway, so we can use that play, but interesting. Now he's just down to the one last card that isn't Nibiru the Primal Being.
And like you said, Brian does know about the Nibiru, so his only thought from this point forward is how can I go for a game without summoning 5 times?
Well, with only so many slots left open, it may not be that difficult. So looking at the Fualos, not going to get any help there, but
Oh,
he's
he might have
summoning.
Typhon. He might have Typhon.
That sounds like a Typhon to me. Normal summon Mulcharmy Fualos.
Yes.
Grab extra deck. Yeah, that sings of Superstar Slayer Sky Crisis Typhon. Or I think Typhon Sky Crisis. My bad, chat.
Currently, it's 2,800 attack, and the Duo Drive is 26.
Who? No. All can be destroyed by battle.
Yeah, Starlight Troll Blast Dragon can only protect from being targeted, and there's no detonator in play to protect his XZ's monsters.
Sure. I'm gonna go Toad effect.
Yeah.
So he took, I believe, 200 damage there.
Drake Shark to summon itself.
Oh, and he gets the Drake Shark, and there's your second level 4 monster.
He's losing 100. I'm gaining 100, so 26, 28, so I take 200.
Yep, math is mathing.
200.
I mean, Brian has more than enough XZ's monsters, but, I mean, Javier has a Nibiru.
Any from Grave or deck. Grave
Well,
or
he
deck.
also has Typhon, which is going to be difficult to use Detonator against because, as you know, it won't be able to use effect. It's at that magic 3,000. But now we're going to go and bounce. And looks like we're going to go just put the Shark Drake back. Maybe make him burn the normal summon.
How funny would it be if Shark Drake wasn't once per turn? You just add it back, it summons back anyway. I mean, oh, it is once per turn.
Hey, it's a good card, but it's not that good. But it looks like play pass back over to Brian. He knows he's got the Nibiru.
Does Typhon stop Nibiru from being activated in your hand? I actually don't know.
Ooh, let's take a quick look through Yu-Gi-Oh! Neuron here.
It might. I think it just says monsters with 3,000 or more attack
3,000,
cannot activate their
yeah.
effects. I don't think it cares where they are.
So then at that point, it's going to be pretty difficult. I guess he's just hoping to hedge his bets.
So X and Eclipse Twins here get Duo Drive back with an Eclipse Twins attached to it. Duo Drive on summon will get to attach again. Yeah, I think Brian knows that Nibiru isn't activated because this line feels greedy otherwise.
Absolutely deciding to press on with some great Yu-Gi-Oh! Knowledge there. And yeah, it is just going to be neither player can activate the effects of monsters with 3,000 or more attack, period. Not on the field, not in the hand, not anywhere, just anywhere.
Wow, so Javier gave Brian the freedom. Oh my gosh, there's Ragnar Zero, and currently the Typhon does have his attack chain.
Because of the RYZEAL Duo Drive. Oh, that is so cool.
Oh, that's beautiful, Ragnar Zero. You thought it was just a Tachyon search target? No, you can make this card, and it's really good. How many summons do we have here, though? Just want to make sure. 1, 2, 3, 4 with this ice.
Got to be careful unless you have another cross-out designator in your hand.
Did he really draw another crossout designator for turn?
I'm not sure, but it looks like he's turning to attack and maybe stopping here.
Oh, we have RYZEAL Cross. I'm a silly bean.
That's right, that's right. We always have cross-out designator. We have RYZEAL cross-out designator. Brian getting some cheers from the crowd there. You may not have been able to hear that on the microphone, just people screaming from that.
Yeah, Ragnar Zero per game is super impressive. That last match was really intense.
It really was. I mean, both duelists showed that these decks are just so customizable, right? You figure out what it is that feels good about your version.